So there have been a number of really awesome mods to come out for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, including reshade mods, mods for different outfits, as well as mods to fully unlock Zack and Sephiroth as playable characters. But the one mod that is making the rounds that has my attention and many others is the ability to control your entire party in battle. It looks insane, so we're going to take a look at that in today's video and kind of use it as a jumping off point to see, will the developers potentially do something like this in 7 Remake Part 3? So if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button, and if you'd like to stick around and help support the channel, you can subscribe, and as always, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Alright, so this whole party mod is pretty sick, and it's coming to us from Twitter user GamesLover, who has found a way not only to unlock Zack and Sephiroth and have them in your main party in the story, but they've also unlocked the ability to control every single character in your party, one right after another in the heat of battle. And the footage they provided is the entire party just going ham in Nibelheim on some monsters. They are shifting from Zack to Cloud to Yuffie to Aerith to Tifa to Red to Katesith to Sephiroth to Barret. Literally everyone in the party is now not only controllable, but way more aggressive. Now, I want to touch on the more aggressive part, because this is sick. Because one of my criticisms from 7 Remake was that I like that the AI does pretty well, they're pretty competent, but I would love for them to be a little bit more aggressive. Now, flash forward to Rebirth, and they did fix that. I felt like the AI for your party is a lot more aggressive in Rebirth. They're also really good at blocking attacks. There's been so many opportunities where a boss is going to do a big attack or an enemy is going to do a big attack, and the AI just perfect parries it, no problem. You get that really satisfying sound. So they are more aggressive, and they do allow for more gambit type systems with the materia to allow your characters to use weapon skill abilities or auto abilities on their own, so you don't have to switch to them. So they've made some really cool strides in terms of combat and setting up your characters from Remake to Rebirth. But seeing this footage is absolutely nuts. It's literally the definition of you came to the wrong neighborhood, motherfucker. And we're just gonna jump all of you all at once. And it is incredibly chaotic. It's super cool, but it is really chaotic, very overwhelming. I'm sure it's one of those things where once you get used to it, it's no problem. It'd be like controlling your 3 main party members like we do in regular battle. But it does seem like it would be a ton to manage in game if this were the route the developers were to eventually take. But what I think is really fascinating about this is the fact that the in-game engine, especially the combat mechanics in that engine, can do this. It's doing it no problem. There's no issues with frame rates, there's no weird glitches in animations, and because Zack and Sephiroth are fully playable characters with full-on abilities and movesets, battle sounds, and animations, it just works really well. And again, they are way more aggressive. It's almost like real people are controlling these characters. And the way it works in Rebirth is you have your main 3 party members, they get into battle, and then everyone who's outside of the party, they kind of offer support, but it's very minuscule. You'll hear battle sounds from the characters, you'll see them do attacks, but it's not really doing a ton of damage, and that's basically all they can do is just stand on the outskirts of the battle and kind of provide some support. But with this, they are just full in on the action, and you can switch to them at any time. Now, since the engine is capable of doing this, would they do this in Remake Part 3? It kind of makes you wonder, because we've speculated in the past, how do you evolve combat even further? And we've talked about things like Tritex for the synergy stuff. Instead of just 2 people, it's now 3 people. Maybe doing some sort of synergy limit break where all 3 characters are able to work together to do a limit attack, much like we see against Genova at the end of Rebirth. Will they enhance the backline command? Because in Rebirth, if you lose 2 party members and you're in danger with just 1 character left, you get the ability to activate the backline command where a person outside of the party can come in and you can do a quick synergy attack. So would they expand that and allow us to swap characters in and out of battle at any given moment? Or are they going to go down this route that this mod has figured out and allow us to control everyone all at once? Now, I think what could happen is it'll probably be like it has been in Remake and Rebirth, where we have our 3 main characters, everyone else is outside of the party, maybe providing support. But in key battles, maybe this stuff does pop up and we can control every single character in our party. Now you might be wondering, what scenario would that call for? I bring to you the weapons, which we've talked about in the past. These weapons are going to be massive. How do you make these battles feel really huge and like a set piece, but also really fun and different? Because by the nature of the size of these weapons, combat's not going to be like it would be fighting regular enemies or regular bosses. You'll have to find a way to make these big set piece battles feel more unique and special, and maybe one of the ways they do that is to allow you to control every single person in your party, whether you're on foot or on the air. It could work. Now, the other idea I proposed was having split parties. You have a few different parties of 3 characters. Maybe you've got a group of characters on the ground. They're responsible for whacking at the feet of the monster. Maybe you've got a second group that is towards the torso of the monster, somewhere in the air or on some sort of cliff that can allow them to reach said weapon. And then maybe you've got a group that's in the high wind that is providing air support via the high wind or spells and abilities that they're able to use when on the deck of the high wind. And you could maybe switch between all of these parties on the fly. So it's not just, okay, you're stuck with that one group on the ground. No, you are now swapping back and forth between every character, regardless of where they are in the battlefield. I think this mod shows that not only is it doable, they might actually do that when it comes to those big weapon battles. You really got to make them feel grandiose and unique. And allowing the player to use everyone in the party all at once really does allow for that. And it really, again, kind of pushes the combat a little bit more towards stuff like we see in Advent Children, where everyone is working together, fighting Bahamut's Sin. It's really cool. And what's even crazier is we still haven't been introduced to Cid and Vincent yet in the form of combat. So technically you could look at this mod, swap out Sephiroth and Zack and just put Vincent and Cid in there and it'd be the same thing. It'd be utter chaos. And the thing is, if they were to maybe take inspiration from this, or maybe they've already got that planned for all we know, again, maybe the combat just stays the same, but they kind of bust it wide open for these weapon battles. But I feel like if you were to do something like this, you would have to really boost the health and defense of the enemies that you're fighting. Because if there is a criticism I do have, is some enemies around the world in Rebirth, the trash mobs, they just go down way too easily. Especially once you really figure out your party and you've got the right weapons and equipment, you can make quick work of big trash mob no problem in Rebirth. It's fun, it feels really good, but they die really fast. So you'd really have to up the HP of these enemies maybe by, 2 times. So they feel not necessarily spongy, but it makes sense for this big group to then jump these enemies, and it's a fight that isn't going to be over in 10 seconds. Now, another idea that this mod and seeing it in action gives me is the idea of introducing gambits like we did in Final Fantasy XII, where you can essentially set up a character in your party to kind of act the way you need them to act for specific fights without you having to actively switch to them in battle. So again, we've seen stuff like that within Rebirth, allowing your characters to use unique weapon and character abilities without you having to swap to them. So maybe they introduced that idea into Remake Part 3 to upgrade the battle system. So now a character like Barrett can basically act on his own, do his regular attack, do his overcharge attack, use spells and other weapon abilities, and if you need to switch to him, you can. And then last but not least, we have no idea what the final battle in Part 3 is going to be. It could be some Advent Children style stuff where we are fighting Bahamut's Sin. It could be a big group battle against Sephiroth, much like I thought we were going to have. I full on thought that Part 3 was going to have Bizarro Sephiroth, or in this case, Sephiroth Reborn, and it was going to be set up like it was in the original game, where you had your 3 platforms, 3 different parties, and you could swap to them at any given time. But then we played Rebirth, and we get to the end, and it's like, no, Sephiroth Reborn, you're going to fight him now. So it makes me curious what's going to be in Part 3. We know Safer Sephiroth has to be a thing, but what other forms are there going to be, and how are we going to fight them? Because again, like the weapons, a final battle with Sephiroth could allow for this big group fight where you are rotating characters throughout the entirety of your party. So either way, this is pretty cool and super nuts, and it's only been about a week since Rebirth has officially been out on PC, and if they're able to bust the game open like this in a week, imagine what they're going to be able to do 6 months from now when it comes to the game's combat. It's pretty nuts, but it also, makes me really excited to see what the developers have planned, because they've done a really good job, I think, of listening to genuine criticisms of the game's combat, exploration, what have you, in making adjustments with every new game. So I'm very curious to see what they have planned planned, but this mod is just super cool. And if you're somebody who has Rebirth on PC, maybe you might want to give it a shot after you finish the game and just see how nuts it really is. With that being said, I am Curious Corduroy. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think of this cool mod? But also, how do you think they're gonna bust open combat in part 3 to help it evolve like we got from Remake to integrate to Rebirth? I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.